All right, now we're ready for the second half of our lesson. So now we're going to do something called completing the square. So we're going to use some of those things we learned in the first half of this lesson, kind of how do I find that last term of my trinomial so that it will be a perfect square trinomial, and how do I put it all to use. So we're going to follow a couple of steps. So they're kind of detailed out top, but I'm going to kind of walk us through piece by piece. So we're going to get the constants over on the right-hand side. So this is a little bit different. So here I'm going to add the 27 to both sides. So I get 3x squared minus 24x is equal to 27. We want to leave that constant piece open because we want to be able to choose what's going to go in there instead. Okay? If necessary, we're going to do some dividing to get an x squared term. So x squared minus 8x is equal to 9. Okay? Now, we're going to complete the square by filling in that last term, and that 9 is just going to hang out there. So we do that by looking at that b term. We're going to divide it in half, and then we're going to square it. So I have negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared gives me 16. So I'm going to add 16 to this side to make it a perfect square. But I have to do the same thing to the other side as well. I got to treat both sides equally. So x squared minus 8x plus 16 factors into x minus 4 squared, and 9 plus 16 is 25. Now we're going to use one of the tricks that we used from last unit when we were checking our vertex form answers. We kind of used our square root. So once we have down where we have just our squared term, I can go ahead and take its square root and do the same thing on the other side. The square root of x minus 4 squared is just x minus 4. Square root of 25, this time because we're dealing with a variable, we're trying to find what x is, we need to allow for both the positive or the negative version of that answer, so we have plus or minus 5. And then finish solving. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 4 plus or minus 5. So I just do both of them. 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. 4 minus 5 is equal to negative 1. So I have solutions or roots of 9 and negative 1. Okay? All right. So let's watch that in action again. First off, get rid of that coefficient by subtracting it to the other side. So I get x squared plus 6x is equal to 7. I don't need to divide anything because I already have the 1 in front of my x squared. But now I want to know what my c term is going to be. So I take my middle term, 6. I divide it by 2 and get 3. And then I square it to get 9. So I must need a plus 9 at the end of that one. But I got to do the same thing on the other side. Okay? So the key is I'm trying to make this into a perfect square trinomial, because now I can factor this into x plus 3 squared. On my other side, 7 plus 9 is 16. Okay. Now I can take my square root, and I get x plus 3 on this side, and over here I get plus or minus the square root of 16, which is 4. I finish solving it, and I get x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 4. So now I find my two answers. X is equal to negative 3 plus 4, so x is equal to 1, or x is equal to negative 3 minus 4, so x is equal to negative 7. So I have answers of 1 and negative 7. Okay? All right. Last example. Okay? So first things we do is get rid of that constant. So I'm going to add 110 to both sides. And I get 2x squared plus 36x is equal to 98. I want to get my x squared by itself, so I'm going to divide everything by 2. And I could have done that right from the beginning if I wanted to. And I get x squared plus 18x is equal to 49. Okay. Now I need to complete the square. So look at my b term. I want b divided by 2, and then I'm going to square it. Well, 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 squared is 81. So I'm going to add 81 to this side, but I got to keep my equation balanced, so I got to do the same thing to the other side. Now, this is a perfect square trinomial. This is just x plus 9 squared. On the other side, I add it together and I get 130. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my square root. So I take the square root of both sides. I get x plus 9 on this side, and I get plus or minus square root of 130 on this side. It doesn't have any perfect square factors to it. I finish solving my equation. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. X is equal to negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 130. So when there's still a radical left in there, since I really can't add it to the negative 9 or subtract it from negative 9, we're just going to leave our solution like this. Negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 130. Okay? But you'll notice that we're going to start to have some of these where it stays a square root, but we might be able to factor something out of it like we've been practicing this first part of the unit in order to help simplify that expression.